So we're back. Hi, everyone. Okie dokie. So now this cabinet was not in my house in Victorville. This cabinet has been passed down from my mom's mother. It used to be in her house, and this is where she kept all of her china. And so this is where I keep a lot more of my books. So on to the next picture. Most of these are, again, these are more magazines, Architectural Digest, some more down here. A lot of these are like crafts, a shadow box. These boxes back here hold the majority of my cards that I received over the years. This book here is Career Choices. I think this was a withdrawn book from the school where I was working at. Same thing here, Measuring Up. They no longer use those. These are healing remedies. This book is all about creating healing remedies straight from the garden, herbs, flowers, without having to take pills. So I've yet to see what this one has to offer. These are books that I've also, some of these are new acquisitions. My mother was getting rid of a bunch of her Jewish cookbooks, but I decided I want to see because her food that she made were from some of these recipes here, and I'm doing also another project about the Holocaust, and I just want to get some more information. So let's start off with this one. And again, these books are doubled, so these books are in front of the other ones at the moment. We have a treasury of Jewish humor. I think this belonged to either my dad or my mom. The Jewish Americans, definitely mine. And you'll see some of these books have these yellow tags called used saves. So for those of you that are entering college, I don't know if it's the same now, but when I was going between community college and undergrad, sometimes students will sell books to other students, or they will get like a credit back for the books that they bought for the semester. I would resell my book back to the bookstore and I would receive a credit, or I would get like the value of the money back. And sometimes the money wasn't even worth it and you're better off selling it off on Amazon. Eyewitness to Jewish History, a history of the Jewish experience. These two definitely I had from my Jewish classes. I do have a minor in Jewish studies. The Unanswered Letter. I have not read this one yet, but I bought this maybe a couple of years ago. Gender and Assimilation in Modern Jewish History. I had one of the best professors for Jewish studies. It's really hard to believe she died of, she suffered from brain cancer, but she was the Jewish studies head chairwoman, Dr. Jody Myers. I loved her. She was great. Memoirs of Anne Frank. I believe this is I think this is the friend of Anne Frank when she was growing up, so she has this. Now, this one here says the Holocaust, but I know that the other book we have is another Holocaust book. We remember the Holocaust. This book here, Kiss Every Step. We had a meeting there a couple of times. There used to be this bookstore called, I think it was called Crown Books, and it used to be at the Westfield Mall from across the way. I don't think they're there anymore. But the group sort of dispersed. But this particular person self-published this book. I think that this person was from that group. And this is about a memoir of Doris Martin. I don't remember ever meeting her, but I did buy her book that was in Crown Books, and I've yet to read this one. The Righteous in Israel at Yad Vashem. Whether they were Jewish or not, the righteous are commemorated at Yad Vashem. And these are people who went out of their way to help European Jews during the Holocaust and what they went through. Some of them survived, some of them didn't. And so I've yet to read the majority of this. I don't think this book was part of my studies, or if it was just a book I picked up from Borders when it was still open. And now, of course, we have the cookbooks. We have the Cooking Jewish, 532 great recipes from the Rabinovitz family. I'm not sure what this one was. The Williamsburg Cookbook. Oh my God. I think we got this when we took a tour of Washington, D.C. That was when we went there in the godforsaken summer. It was so humid and hot. I don't know how I couldn't stand it, and it was an interesting trip. I just wish I felt more praise for it, to be honest. A Russian Jew cooks in Peru. I've never seen this before, but I loved the illustrations in this. These two are some more cookbooks. I'm not sure what they are. Costco. Hello, smart cooking the Costco way. Deli, and finally, Meals for One or Two. Better Homes and Gardens. Hey, hey, hey. It's still going strong. And these are the books in the back. images of our times, 60 years of photography from the Los Angeles Times. So this is a book compilation of all these photographs throughout the LA Times. Side by Side is a poetry book, and it has beautiful illustrations. The Norton, I have a few of these collections. I have the Norton Introduction to Literature for this copy. More books on teaching. This, I think it was a magazine for children called Cricket. Children's literature through storytelling. This may have been a freebie. I know these three I got during my years at CSUN. Teaching for Diversity and an Introduction to Multicultural Education and Brother to Brother. I cannot remember the professor's name, but the one who introduced us to this one, he was actually a retired professor, and he was brought back because he's one of the best. And God forbid, I cannot think of his name right now. The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. This is, I think, something that I think every person, like if you work in a particular workplace, there's like a language code that you need to know in order to get along with others. World Through Literature. This may have been a withdrawn book, I think, but I'm not sure if this is mine or if it's my dad's. How to Say the Right Thing Every Time. This book in particular, I believe I got this while I was teaching. The Art of Public Speaking. I stutter. I've been stuttering since I was a kid. There are days when I cannot even say my first name without stuttering, the re. So it's hard. Entertaining an Elephant. God, this was so good. I believe we read this book. It was either for Professor Klemp or Nava. I know we had to read that book for something, but this is a great book for understanding teaching. Vocabulary for the college-bound student. I'm not sure which edition this is. I'm pretty sure that there are newer ones. This was also withdrawn, but if you look closely, a dictionary of cliches. Students, be careful of using cliches and when you overuse them, okay? Because you need to have something of your own originality. Action grammar. This is used save. Did I have this for college? That I don't remember. I'm not sure what that spiral book is. I bought these 2 Spanish books. What does it say? Spanish grammar, Spanish at a glance. This is for like conversational Spanish. I took Spanish in high school. I never took to it. And then, of course, we have Grayzel's A History of the Jews. Again, this is a withdrawn book, I think, from my high school library as well. Okay, now, if you recall the cabinet, underneath the glass encasement, this is where the majority of my research books are. Yeah, I have the Art of DreamWorks. I have the Art of How to Train Your Dragon. I have Deepwater Ancient Ships. This is another one. I think in like the 900s, it was a lot of like the nonfiction books. These are the books that are in the front, top and bottom. I'll go by very, very slowly. Somerset Studio. All these are art magazines. And I found some interesting projects that I definitely want to partake in. Rappaport's Superstitions of Sailors. I bought this in Greenwich. We took a trip to the Naval, I think it was the Naval Museum, and this is where I picked up that book. The Twilight Seas. Again, marine biology. I love anything to do with whales, anything to do with cetaceans, okay? So I have Twilight of the Seas. I have Among Whales. The River of Light, I believe, is a book on Jewish science. Okay, I told you about the Tale of Genji. I told you about the Iliad of World. I forgot the title. It's the one where it's the ancient sacred text. This is another one. Umberto Eco, The Island of the Day Before. I tried starting this book. I think I read the first 2 pages and I got completely lost. And I'm going to have to take some time, set this book aside for like the summer and just read through it and take down notes. There's a lot to take in. I became a fan of Master and Commander, and I actually ended up borrowing all the books by Patrick O'Brien. I never ended up reading any of them because I had a lot more library books along the way, so I'll need to take some time and read those again. But I became such a big fan of the film, anything to do with the lives of midshipmen. And I want to say, when I got this book, I believe I was at CSUN still, and I was creating a storyboard animatic. I loved making storyboard animatics. It was about a whaler's son. That little snippet is now in the story works for me, so I'm not gonna say anything about that. Brian Jocks. Anyone here a fan of the Redwall series? I am. I love the Redwall series. And I think I still have 2 or 3 books of the series that I haven't completed yet. This is another one, Voyage of Slaves. Never read that. And I think there's another one that he wrote, something to Castaways, I think. Now, you may or may not believe this. This is, I think, either my mom's or my dad's copy, or my grandfather's on my mother's side of the family, his copy of the Odyssey by Homer. Guess what, y'all? I have not read the Odyssey by Homer, not the entire thing. In school, we were taught about the Greek gods, the Roman gods, but I was never taught about the Odyssey. We didn't go over that. I know, surprise, surprise. This book here is a book that I bought maybe a few years ago. Daughters of Nantucket. Think of this as Moby Dick, based on the whale ship Essex. This is like that story, but in this case, the Daughters of Nantucket are the women who are waiting for their husbands, their sons, their brothers, their cousins, their uncles to come back home in the harbors of all of the East Coast states. During that time, they were all about the whaling ships. So I now have a lot of books about anything from maritime, mermaids, superstition, cetaceans, all of that combined into one. And the more books I have on that, the better. Another one that talks about mermaids is the Book of Speculation. There were some mixed reviews on that one. I forgot what God on the Rocks is. Again, the majority of these books are ones I haven't read yet. This one I did, though. Speaking of which, Nathaniel Philbrick's In the Heart of the Sea. It was about the whale ship Essex and how a whale tipped the balance. The whale rammed into the vessel. And what happened with the crew? One of the boats disappeared. Another one ended up being marooned on shore. And in order to spare the lives of others, they resorted to, only when necessary, they resorted to cannibalism. Not to give too much away, but one of the men who sacrificed himself was the cousin of the captain. There's an interesting documentary about In the Heart of the Sea, which is really, it's quite something. I love these two by Golden. Right now, I'm still in the middle of reading SS Mein Kampf and enjoy. SS Mein Kampf. Eat, eat, my child. Both of these books have to do with everyday Jewish life, mostly in America. I loved this book by Elizabeth Murray. This is painterly photography. This woman, I don't know if this is because of Photoshop or what, but her photography appears like paintings. And this book is like an entire portfolio of her work, and it's phenomenal. I cannot rave enough about the author Sue Monk Kidd. For those of you that are familiar with her work, her book, Traveling with Pomegranates, the mother and daughter Odyssey, brilliant. Loved every minute of it. She also wrote The Secret Life of Bees. This one is called The Mermaid Chair. There's a mystery as to this somewhat of a holy relic that came from the sea, and it's been a while since I've read the story. And a woman who's trying to find herself unexpectedly, I think she falls in love with the priest who is connected directly to this mermaid chair that was kept in this chapel. That's as far as I remember. The Exile of Sarah Stevenson. Sometimes there will be books. If anyone here is a fan of As Time Goes By, there's the publisher, Alastair Deacon, and he says, what does the book have to say? Pick me up and buy me. That's one of the reasons I picked up this one, as well as The Mermaid Chair. If the cover grabs your attention, that's half the battle. This is another story about someone living in a lighthouse, but it also travels across space and time. C.S. Forester, Horatio Hornblower, The Hornblower and the Hotspur. I guess that's one of the many books that he wrote. I love these two. By Hyperion, Colors of the Wind, and Out There. These are both the Disney films of Pocahontas and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Hell yeah. These are basically animatics as books. They're storyboard animatics as books. And it's brilliant. I love those two. Speaking of whales, Moby Dick. I think Stephen Sondheim, those books are probably in the back, if I'm not mistaken. So is The Drama of the Ocean. That's a book, I think, from what, the 70s or 80s. And I picked that book up. I don't know if I was in high school when I picked that book up. Something to that effect. Lost Liners, if you are familiar with Titanic, the Lusitania, the Mary Celeste. This book has all of them. I've yet to read this one because it looks so interesting. Death the Door, Music a Key. The author is Angela, I can't tell, that says Selberez or Skelberez. I believe she's Australian. She wrote about assisting the dying, and she would play her harp at the beds of those in hospice care. Words with Music. I think this is either a music book or it is a book of poems with music accompaniment, I think. New Worlds Ahead. This is, I think, a book of literature. And of course, we have The Making of the Life of Pi. I read the novel by Yann Martel. Brilliant. And the film, oh my God. I loved it. I loved it. And my dad and I actually ended up seeing the show. That was really interesting. It's amazing to see how far puppetry has come from being on these little puppet stages to the big theatrical arena. It's amazing. And the one on the right is called Visionary State. This one I've read, and this for me is a staple in my library. So these are the books in the front. Let's take a look at the books at the bottom. The Cambridge Medieval, I think it's volume 2 of 1, which I don't have, unfortunately. But I think that's the Master Cambridge Medieval. It's either history or pageantry. I love Tracy Chevalier, and she's the one who wrote The Girl with the Pearl Earrings. She wrote The Virgin Blue. And this one here is, I think this one is The Lady and the Unicorn. This one is, it's hard to see the title on this one. I believe that's The Horn of Roland. And this was around the time of the stories of Robin Hood of Sherwood Forest. Geoffrey Chaucer of England, The Chaucer Tales. Sir Walter Scott's Ivanhoe. You'll notice all of these books have to do with medievalism. Speaking of which, Murder Most Medieval. Mark Twain, The Prince and the Pauper. For Mark Twain, an American author, this is one of 2 stories he wrote about medieval England. And this one is The Prince and the Pauper. The other one is A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. The Knight and Chivalry. If anyone is a fan of Mike Lode's Going Medieval documentary, oh my God. Mike Lode's, thank you. And Dr. Tobias Capwell. I love the work that you guys do. And I didn't know that Dr. Tobias Capwell was he's the only American knight who accompanied, and I didn't know this. I'm going to have to watch the video again. I didn't know that he accompanied the reburial of Richard III. He was one of 2 knights to accompany the royal procession. That was really something. I didn't know that. The Book of Celtic Verse. I'm all about Celtic music, Celtic language. I'm all for it. Women in the Middle Ages. I think the one I'm currently I didn't finish it yet. It's been years. I want to say it's called The Waning of the Middle Ages. This one here is, this has to do with the medieval plays. Everyman and medieval miracle plays. So the only way that the peasantry was able to be educated, only the wealthy, high class people during the Middle Ages got their education through the church. For everyone else, the miracle plays were there to teach the local peasantry to do good unto God. In other words, under divine watch, and you will be saved. That's one of the reasons why these miracle plays were put on. The Pursuit of Music by Davies. I guess this has to do with music history. Speaking of, again, this is sort of a mix here. The Ghost of the Mary Celeste. So the Mary Celeste was it was a smallish vessel, and it had a crew. And I believe the Mary Celeste, I think the wife, Mary, was one of the people on that vessel. Her husband, and I think they had a child. The boat was found, but the people disappeared. And to this day, we have no idea what could have happened to them. The lifeboats were missing, so we're not sure if they were hit by a rogue wave and they just disappeared altogether. We don't know. But the boat was found abandoned. And that's kind of scary. I've yet to read this one. The Anatomy of Melody, Exploring the Single Line of Song. I think this has to do again with writing song lyrics. Sondheim and Lapine, Into the Woods. I even have Sunday in the Park with George. I am a Sondheim fanatic. I will not live without Stephen Sondheim. I read Anthony Rapp's Without You. I read this on a trip up north for the wedding of one of my dear friends and her husband. I read this book going there, and I read the rest of it on the way back. Man's Religions. I think this is another book that was on withdrawal from my library. Restoring Notre Dame de Paris. Thank you to the Disney artists. Thank you to layout editor Ed Gertner, Glenn Keane, every single artist who worked on The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Thank you for bringing that story to life. I became obsessed with this story. And at the time, you have to remember, this was I think it was 1996 when that film came out. 11 years would pass until we got a chance to travel to France in the summer of 2007. We were there for a week. Then we took the Channel train from France to England, and we were there for another week. But I told them when we were going over the itinerary before we left, my mother and I had a very terrifying turbulence attack experience on this flight. The whole flight situation it was ridiculous. I'm not going to go into it, but we had a very nasty experience on a flight. The turbulence was through the roof. And I to this day, I hate flying. If I can take a train, so be it. But when we were given a chance to see this cathedral in person and to go in, I said, that's the only reason I'm planting my butt on that plane. Day 2, we took the boat through the Seine, and my mother tapped me on the shoulder, and she said, Rebecca, look to your right. I cried. I literally burst into tears. I could not stop crying because I cannot believe I was there to see this cathedral and to embrace everything about her. However, it was so crowded. It was so crowded. I think we entered through the west facade, and because the author, Victor Hugo, the west facade looks like an H of his name. So that's why he's synonymous with the cathedral. But I was fascinated by the story as to how the story even came about. And then I was teaching when we got word. I was on my computer in my class. Good thing it was a little break. But I remembered going on Yahoo News, and this headline blazed across the page that Notre Dame was on fire. I was like, what? What? And when that spire fell, I'm sorry, it was like watching the 9/11 attacks all over again. And we saw the documentary of the cathedral being restored. And thank you to the carpenter who was one of the people there who I think he redesigned, or he was there using the medieval techniques to restore the cathedral. And he was the first person in years to have his marriage there inside the cathedral. Bless you, sir. Speaking of Sondheim, putting it together bit by bit. How Stephen Sondheim and I created Sunday in the Park with George. No musical theater student can have a library without having, if you are, especially if you are a musical theater fan and you're going into a theater major, this is one of the books you need on your shelf. I have yet to read this, but I love everything about Sahat. Disney Magic, I think this has to do with I think it has to do with the Disney cruise. This has to do with opera, molto, I hope I say it right, molto agitato, and, or agitato, something. And it has to do with the ins and outs of opera, what goes up, what goes down, and so on and so forth. Yanni in words. If you are not familiar with Yanni, he is a new age artist. I thought he was from India, and it turns out he was from Greece. We spent maybe a week in Vegas, and I forgot what store this was in. It might have been in either Caesar's Palace or it was in one of the other major hotel casinos. You know, when it comes to going into stores, you know how sometimes when you go into like an electronics store like Best Buy or Target or whatever, they used to have the music selections and they would have these headphones that would hang on the wall. You can put the headphones on and you would press a song button that would show like, oh, this is the soundtrack. And I remembered looking at the title of this soundtrack and it was called Winter Light. And I listened to it. That was the first CD of Yanni's I ever bought. And it was Keys to Imagination that put Yanni on the music map. Thank you, Yanni. You are considered my personal favorite. Edelman, Discovering Jewish Music. There's a CD that comes with this. Kabbalah. I have 2 books on Kabbalah, the Kabbalah Tree and the Kabbalah Handbook, the primary tradition of Jewish mysticism. Basically, it's through discovering the true nature of God and spiritual intentions. I'm seeing a military miscellany. I'm wondering if that's the book that's in between this one. Tim Burton. Oh my God. My brother and I went to go see this exhibition at LACMA. Tim Burton, you are a legendary genius of stop motion animation and your work is phenomenal. I have a book on music and I also have a book about the novel. It's all about the history. This is the book in red, my ultimate favorite so far of the medieval books that I have read. This one is my true favorite. I borrowed it from the library, and to my surprise, I went to a library sale a few months later, and the book was there. I couldn't believe it. The Medieval Art of Love. Oh, there is so much more than just knights wooing ladies in waiting. There's an art to courtly love. It was absolutely phenomenal. I loved everything about this book. So thank you to Michael Camille, who wrote this. This is like a dissertation. How courtly love was also an art of courting, which we don't really do nowadays. We call it dating now. A lady would give a knight an engraved buckle. There was even, I want to create one. There was even one where I think a woman had made a heart-shaped book of love or something for her knight or her lover. Courting was an art, and this book is all about the medieval art of courtly love. It's beautiful. And of course, we come back to Disney. In Solvang, when Mother and I went, there was an exhibition of the most unique art. I have the DVD of his technique. The late artist Evans Earl, who is responsible for the art background of Sleeping Beauty. But what he did in these other paintings, he has a love of trees, and how he paints them is no other artist has painted like him. Beautiful. And then, of course, we have the art of Tangled. Tangled was the first, I think it was the first Disney princess film, but this time they're no longer talking about who the person is. As I was saying, now the majority of Disney films, Tangled, Brave, Frozen, all of these are, Adjectives. But at least the Tangled story was going somewhere. At least it told a story from beginning to end. Others, let me say this. I even have the book of Frozen somewhere in this cacophony of my library, but I loved the only reason why Frozen made it is because of the song. That was it. The story, nope. It needed help. Now I haven't seen the second one yet, but I was told the music is okay, but the story is better. So I'm like, not too sure. So these are the books that are in the back. Hopefully I can get to all of these books. The World of Art, William Blake. This was an exhibition at the Getty. This was maybe a year or two ago when I went to that exhibition. And I think this was the same one too. Eternity's Sunrise. This was so William Blake, those were two books that I bought at the Getty after the exhibition. And William Blake was not just a poet, he was an artist, and he had a very complex life, but the artwork that was able to be preserved is just astounding. Whitman's Leaves of Grass. This copy from my high school library, that edition, I think it's either from 1909 or 1911. But I started writing a play based on one of the poems. And it was because of Dead Poets Society that I got into Whitman. So thank you. The Titans? I forgot what that one is. But again, you can see any one of these books that has these numbers. These were library books from my high school. Poems, Emily Dickinson, a staple in my library. The poet and I share the same birthday, December 10th. And one of these days, I would like to go to Amherst and take an hour or two to sit in her home, in the poet's home. If you go to the Emily Dickinson Museum website, there's a way that you can reserve a room or one of the desks and chairs. There's no other things that are allowed. You can spend an hour or two in whichever room that would be. It could be in the bedroom, it could be in the library, or it could be the sitting room, whatever. But I would love to do that one day. One day. Okay, so I already went over Lost Liners, The Drama of the Oceans. Okay, I could not go without having both of these. Finishing the Hat. Look, I made a hat. Both titles from Sunday in the Park with George, and I've yet to read them both. The Little Book of Japanese Living. I cannot get enough from Japan. Songs Along the Way. What was this one? Songs Along the Way. Was that a Jewish book? I'm not quite sure. Earth Care. This is all poetry from indigenous tribes, folklore from the other countries. But yeah. Wade Davis. I was hoping to interview him when this book came out, but he got booked. I think I've read did I read the whole thing? I may have to read it again. 28 Artists and 2 Saints. I think this was a withdrawn book as well from the library, but it has to do with artists of the ballet stage. And then I have here the Encyclopedia of Dance and Ballet. I could not go without that. Hey, I took ballet for 8 years until I was 10. I never got to go on toe shoes. That was the dream. And the reason why I stopped, I was going through a miserable time at school. Honestly, if I had my druthers, I would have skipped school and had gone on to ballet and been homeschooled for the rest of the time. And now I'm seeing all these incredible YouTube videos, especially the one from Arizona, Master Ballet Academy, I think. These young boys and girls, I can already tell which have a particular style. I want to say a signature, a trademark. And then you have my other favorite YouTuber, Life of Lori. Lori Hernandez, you're one of my top favorites. But my ballet muse, Natalia Makarova, and my personal favorite, Alessandra Ferri, the ballerina assoluta, as she's known today. In Search of a Whale, I think it's called. I don't know what that book is next to it. This one is some sort of, I think this is a children's book, some kind of folklore children's book. This is the only book of mine that is entirely written in German, the Grimm's Marchen, or Marchen. This was a, I want to say it sounds like R2-D2, but it's not. Guide to Folding and Doodling. This was like I got this when I was teaching. I think we gave them away to students just to give them a break from studying all that time. This is a book on origami. This one, Colors Demonic and Divine. When I was taking art history classes, I remember I bought this book to understand how certain colors meant certain things in religious art. California, Art of the State. So yeah, we got something to be proud of here in SoCal. Mary, oh my God, I love this artist, Mary Engelbrett Spring. She has this childlike art quality that just makes it so comforting and inviting. It's beautiful. Art and Wonder, another book of art and illustrated history of paintings. What was Joy to the World? What was that one? A Victorian, oh good heavens, what the heck was that one? I think that's a Christmas book with Victorian themes. Japanese Tales, I saw this, I had to get it. Okay. I did a video of Robert Schenken. The only reason I know about this guy is because I had bought the original script of Hacksaw Ridge. And I didn't know that Robert Schenken is also a playwright. And I had borrowed from the library 4 of his plays. This one was the last copy on Amazon, from what I know, of Final Passages. It was actually based on a discovery. It wasn't exactly an abandoned ship, but it was, I think the ship may have been scuttled. The boarding party came aboard the ship and all the passengers were dead. And there was a note left saying that a young cabin boy had written he was responsible. He was never found. And somehow Robert Schenken took the idea, and created what could have possibly have happened. And there's a YouTube video when it was first performed on a stage. Whoever plays the young cabin boy, you better have the physicality and the mentality for it. It was really something. Cape Cod stories. When it comes to Cape Cod, think about all these real-time shows of vessels, fishermen, and how every time you go out to sea, some people crave adventure, others crave security. The Door in the Wall by D'Angeli. This was a beautiful story of the Middle Ages, having to do with the plague and how a young boy who is physically affected by the plague manages to save his family and I think the village through somehow, I forgot. Mermania. This was a book I picked up, I think, from Barnes& Noble. Yeah, don't know what that book is next to it. This was interesting. The other bookstore I love that I love going to is Vroman's Bookstore. This was one of those books I picked up. The Very Secret Sex Lives of Medieval Women. Not for the faint of heart. Fashion in the Middle Ages. Again, I am in my medieval mindset at the moment. All these books are here for research. Something Understanding Illustrated Manuscript. The original Disney films, Sleeping Beauty especially. I think it was the only film that had that illuminated manuscript style. And I remember I went to this exhibition. I actually made a video project of it. I haven't posted it yet. There was this book called Disney French Inspired something or other. It was an exhibition at the Huntington. And I got to go and I got to see the original works of art of the Sleeping Beauty film. And it was so beautiful. But think about that for a minute. There's the Page Master. And I have, later on, you'll see in another picture, illuminated manuscripts. I became obsessed, again, with the art of writing. It's a beautiful way to take writing beyond the page, beyond the extreme. It's really something. And then, of course, here we have the Country Life Book of Castles and Houses in Britain. I spread these magazines out on the floor. These are all the Somerset Studio magazines. These are the books on the bottom shelf in the back. These, these are my, I think these are my dad's books. They're called The Student Handbook, which, I mean, if you wanted to get your entire education at the time, all you had to do was look at these 3. These are Spanish. These are my mother's books. including this folder of hers back here. This here is a Kleenex box. These are actually Seagull bookends that belong to my uncle. This is a bag of paper clips based on the documentary called Paper Clips. Okay, let's take a look at the books that are over here. This is a ballet based on Ivan the Terrible. And here we have, I think he passed recently. Grigorovich was responsible for bringing Spartacus' story to the Bolshoi stage. It's epic. But I feel for any woman who portrays Phrygia, I don't know how you not pass out on stage and faint. I wouldn't do it. I can't read it. A Young Person's Guide to Music. Oh yeah, I have a couple of these. The Everything book of so-and-so. This is the Everything Reading Music book, Essential Songwriting. The Theater Museum, I think this is my dad's book. Again, here we have another one, 921. This was a withdrawn book from my library. Guess who it is? Aaron Copland. Fanfare of the Common Man. That's one of his major works. Alfie Boe. Never heard of him until I saw Les Mis at the O2. Amazing. Now, Johann Sebastian Bach. This book belongs to one of my parents, but I'm not going to talk about the middle school, that godforsaken middle school. But I had a thing for all Bach music. I was also taking piano lessons at the time, and I was determined to learn all the pieces of Johann Sebastian Bach. The reason I love this composer, listen to the original Fantasia, Toccata and Fugue in D minor was the first piece. And speaking of more composers, this is an intimate portrait of Toscanini. That's another one. King Arthur's Raid. This book packs a punch. There's a bunch of mythological path guides to understanding the world of King Arthur, and this book is one of them. And of course, we have the Art of more Disney books. We have, oh yeah, I did have The Art of Tangled, The Art of Brave, and Awaking Beauty. Yeah, that was another one too. Part 3, we're going to venture into my room, where the majority of books remain.